or fractional executive level, you have to think 5 steps ahead, 10 steps ahead, whatever it is, right? You have to think strategic in order to really support the founder or business owner that you're working with, which is ultimately what we're trying to do, is see an entrepreneur, help them grow without making as many mistakes as I had to make, because I didn't have that fractional person when I was developing companies that some worked, some didn't, right?
Hello and welcome to the Fractional Executive Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Kauth. The Fractional Executive Podcast is for established founders and family enterprise owners whose businesses are in the $500,000 to $10 million revenue range and are currently stuck on a plateau of no growth. Our guest today is Dylan Jones. Dylan currently works as a fractional CRO and strategist for his company, Profit Launchpad. He has founded several companies, including a team of operational, growth, and finance experts, as well as a clean tech startup and a sustainable proteins company. Prior, he spent several years in the mineral exploration industry. He is also the current entrepreneur in residence at Foresight, Canada's clean tech accelerator. Please welcome Dylan to the podcast. Now, in order to help you grow your business and get it off that terrible no-growth plateau that you're currently on, we need to get more great guests like Dylan on the podcast. And to do that, please help us grow the show by sharing the podcast, like and subscribe, follow the podcast, and leave us a 5-star review. This, again, helps us grow the podcast, get great guests on here like Dylan, and that will then help you grow your business. And we also want this to be interactive, so please leave comments and feedback for Dylan and I for this episode, and reach out to us. Contact the show. Dylan, thanks again for joining us. Let's jump right in, if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ryan. I'm really excited to jump in.
So Dylan, you have this really unique work background with several roles in the same firm and essentially in the same industry for a while. How did that experience prepare you to found several companies and then serve as an entrepreneur in residence, now helping other founders?
Yeah, that's going way back. That's the deep cuts to the start of the career. So when I graduated university, I had the privilege of graduating post Great Recession, like right away. And anyone who graduated in that like 2009 to 2011 chunk will remember, maybe not so fondly, that it was pretty hard to find anything meaningful for work. And so I started with a firm that did mineral exploration in Canada. And so basically just started picking up dirt for them, being a soil sampler. And just saw that, like any situation, there's a real ability to grow fast if you're ambitious and worked hard. So my first season, picking up dirt, then I went into crew chiefs, so running multiple crews, and then cab management, running, the operational side of a drill site. So on a typical mining or mineral exploration site, there's the top dog is the project geologist, and then the camp manager second runs operations. We had that first camp was probably about 70 people running a $12 to $15 million drill program. And from there, I spent a couple seasons in the Yukon, which is kind of Canada's Alaska, if people aren't familiar with it, and realized pretty quickly that, summer is bugs, winter is very cold, and winter starts in about mid-September. I actually remember being in a tent, a big wall tent in mid-September, and having a wet shoelace overnight froze straight, so it was sticking out from the boot. It wasn't draping down. I remember looking at that going, I need to learn more about business so I can fly into these camps and have a look at the project and stay on the project finance side. So I went and did that. I do have an MBA. Specifically, I wanted to learn more about business because I really like the operational side. That wasn't something I had any experience or exposure to through university. And then from there, I started as an analyst, internal business consultant, project finance, all within the same firm. And it really spoke to me. We actually spun my first company out from that larger firm. We were looking at, so this would have been like 2014, 15. So we were looking at alternative ways to create wealth within the mineral exploration industry. So we're doing some technology testing and things like that. And we had a company that is now Terra CO2 Technologies that I stepped down from the CEO role a few years later to bring on a specialist to take it out or take it far into commercialization. And it's done really, really well, which has been great for me personally, but it's also been great just to see the team go from like 4 people to I think they're 20, 25 now and having commercial plants built. But anyways, to answer your question, that experience has really just told me that I'm always looking forward. And my mentor, the owner of that company, was very supportive of me, saying like, listen, I don't think you have a great career in corporate because you're constantly trying to like build the next thing, learn the next thing. He's like, I think you should look at starting your own company, becoming an entrepreneur and developing new ideas. So he was very supportive and actually supported that first technology company to spin out and put me in the CEO role. So that was where I got my first taste of entrepreneurism there.
Oh, that's great. First, I'm glad I asked that question because that really laid the foundation for you founding companies. But I think also in there, you're talking about leading a camp, 70 people. That's got to be valuable as well as a founder.
Yeah, so I did that. I think I was like, I'm 23, 24, so pretty young. And, our project geologists were the same age. It's kind of 2 23-year-olds with $15 million, 2 helicopters, 5 diamond drill platforms, which are probably at least $1.5 million each. And, the lives of 70 people, 6 hours away from what you could call a hospital, but maybe it would be more of an ACO trailer with a first aid attendant in it. And that really solidified for me systems, processes, and even documentation. I wouldn't call myself a document lover, but having really good systems and processes in that type of situation where you have a lot of machines, a lot of people flying all over the place, you're building roads literally day by day, and there's helicopters that you have to schedule in and out, and in some case planes as well. A lot of negative things can happen really quickly if you're not thinking in what are the processes that need to go in place and need to be done day by day. And so I think that definitely set the foundation for how I think about operations in general, but business for sure from a strategic standpoint.
Dylan, your work today as a fractional CRO who understands strategy, that seems to be pretty unique, as well. Can you tell me what fractional means to you, and then what a CRO does to help companies grow?
Yeah, I love that. That's a great question. What does fractional mean? It means so many things to so many people. I think to a lot of people it just means consultant. To me, it means part-time. That's the simplest way I can say. So when someone says, are you a consultant? I say, no, I'm a fractional, CRO or COO. And what does that mean? It is I'm a part-time CRO. And I know I have enough experience that I can work with companies right in the range we're talking about here. I typically work a little bit bigger, 1 million and then about 5. That's kind of my sweet spot right now. On all I've worked all well up to $50 million. Is that we just know a fractional person has the skill set and experience to know what needs to happen without going through a training process. And so we can demand a higher rate, but you only need us for part of the time. Rather than the flip side is hire someone, train them in, pay them a little or significantly less in some cases, to have them grow into that role, which fits great for a lot of businesses. But I find people who want to scale, owners who want to scale faster or solve specific problems, a fractional or part-time role with an experienced executive or operator is in many cases a better fit. I call myself a fractional CRO because I, as a startup CEO, have built sales programs, teams, and revenue from the ground up. So for that $5 million, $10 million company, I really know how to implement an effective sales program and get really right down to the brass tacks quickly. I really like revenue operations or RevOps applied to small business. It originally came from enterprise, but I think it can be applied really well, even better in small business where you don't have the luxury of being able to pay, VP sales, VP marketing, VP customer service, like one guy who has to do it all. If you're thinking in that kind of big bucket of all of this is connected, I find it's an awesome way to think for small business. A CRO can mean anything. For like an enterprise company is running teams of 1,000. For a small company, I just think about the middle letter there is R, revenue. What are we bringing in and how much does it cost? And how can we mitigate the cost to bring in more revenue? I think a lot of technical entrepreneurs don't realize that if you want to do $1 million in sales, we want to do 10 million in sales, it's going to cost you between 10 and 20% of that revenue just to bring the leads in. So they're like, yeah, I have, a couple $100,000 to develop this whole company, but I want to do 10 million in sales this year. It's like, hey, you're going to need about 10 times the cash. And so where do you get that cash? And that's something that I find, and why I label myself CRO is a VP sales manager, whatever, doesn't think like that. And that's where that real strategic portion comes in for any fractional, like C-level or fractional executive level. You have to think 5 steps ahead, 10 steps ahead, whatever it is, right? You have to think strategic in order to really support the founder or business owner that you're working with, which is ultimately what we're trying to do is see an entrepreneur, help them grow without making as many mistakes as I had to make, because I didn't have that fractional person when I was developing companies that some worked, some didn't, right?
Right. I mean, the fractional nature of founders having multiple functional roles and then having the ability to hire a fractional executive is really why this podcast is named what it is, and is really why we started the podcast, to help small business owners, family business owners, established founders how to get off that next no growth plateau. And so in order for us to grow the show, to help you grow your business and have great guests on here like Dylan, again, share the podcast, like and subscribe, follow us, leave a 5-star review, and interact with us. Drop comments below. And again, what that helps us do is grow the podcast, get great guests on here like Dylan, and that then helps you grow your business. So Dylan, what were some of the most difficult things you had to master to develop into that strategic executive from your functional operations leadership role?
The best lesson I've learned is actually in failure. So I had a company, Kauth Protein, that ultimately just ran out of cash. And the reason it ran out of cash was I did not fully understand product market fit. And we had product market fit at a niche level. And then we took on capital to expand into mass, both on e-com and in retail. This is a sustainable protein company. That blew us apart. With our cost of acquisition going from niche to mass, I don't remember the details, but essentially like 8x that acquisition cost. So we burned through all our capital in about 8 months. And then, we're at a pivot point with no money, and ultimately just had to close the business, unfortunately. What I took from that is, and I think what any good fractional leader will take from that is, get product market fit sorted for cheap and then scale. Don't scale over it, trying to figure, expecting it to come. And when I say it and product market fit, expecting it to come by throwing buckets of money at it, because it won't happen. And I see it time and time again, and I've seen it. I work a lot with trades companies, trade services. So you think product market fit is really already established 500 years ago, but it's not. And I've worked with SaaS. I mean, that's only product market fit until you run out of cash. That's like the whole game with SaaS. So it's something that I focus on heavily. There's so many great tools now that you can figure out your USP and you figure out your offer and marketing. But really, if the niche isn't there and then you can't expand that niche profitably, it may be a great idea. And one thing I really push a lot of founders towards and clients I work with is it may be a great idea as a lifestyle business, and maybe that's where you want to stay. But a lot of people don't understand that. Like sometimes you just can't grow this bigger than a lifestyle business just because of nothing you've done wrong. And so that's something that we work with founders a lot on. And we're very careful when we do our discovery and onboarding of those clients to make sure that we're not, overcharging. We're not building up too much of expectation before we really understand that's something I really am passionate about. If you can be passionate about product market fit, but as much as I am, it's really for the protection of those owners and the businesses ultimately.
I think you talking about product market fit might have answered what I want to ask you next, which is kind of flipping this. But what can today's established founders and family enterprise owners learn from startup founders? I think you kind of gave me that answer, but if there's something else that you think is really important.
Oh, you know what? The thing I've seen with an established company that they typically do wrong is they forget all the lessons that they learned being scrappy and lean. And they'll bring on a new department or acquire a company, go into a new area, and they'll apply all the same logic systems that they have at established. And it'll fail, right? They'll buy a company, everyone will leave, they'll launch a new product, it won't work because they'll just throw money at it. And I think, so there's an aspect, of course, of product market fit there, but it's more, you can't just turn on that business unit as the exact same as the already existing company. And I think the best lesson or place to learn that lesson is look at Google. I know it's, about as far away as from startup as you can possibly get, but they'll create a business unit that'll make a turn on or turnkey like $100 to $200 million a year, and they'll burn it after 3 years because it's not making $1 billion. And it's like they'll lose that money knowing they're not sure if it's going to work at scale. So I think that's a great lesson, and I do try to think about that a lot. Is if Google will commit $500 million to something they're not entirely sure is going to work, to grow your business in new business areas or business units, is like you have to understand that it probably won't work the way you envision it. Doesn't mean it won't work for sure, but it probably means that the original vision needs tweaking and that you're going to lose money for a little while. Hopefully not too long. You shouldn't burn too much cash or jeopardize the overall business, but it's very real. It's very real. I think a lot of, you've been doing your business. I see this in trades again a lot. If you've been doing your business 10, 15 years, you're a great HVAC entrepreneur, and you're like, I think we can buy an electrical company. And it just wipes out in like the first year. And it's because that time and care and, building the customers and understanding what the market wasn't done. And it's really simple, but simple to say, complex in execution.
Sure. Using Google as an example, if we can kind of keep going with that, what I wanted to ask you next was, why should established founders and family business owners consider working with startup founders? I've seen a lot of larger companies say they want to work with startups, but they really struggle to do that. But why should they try anyway?
So when you mean, when you say work with startups from like a family or established company, do you mean as like a purchasing the company or a vendor, or just any little clarity there?
So it could be all of those and more.
Oh man, how much time do we have? Startups are tough. Like, what's the failure rate of startups? I don't even know anymore. It's probably 50% at least, if not more.
At least.
So I think if you're an established business owner, I would consider myself mid-career business owner. But if you're a late career, 55, 65 years old, you've been running your business for 20, 30 years or more, or if you're like into that new business, you've seen startups come and go, promise the world, and then disappear in the next year for 3 decades. That's really hard to buy the word of any startup founder. But I think in that position, you have to keep an open mind. Like, you have to continually, and if you see an opportunity that aligns, and I think I'm kind of getting to the point I want to make is, if your vendor or your potential partner or someone's just coming to pitch you as a startup, you have to have that alignment on what are you trying to make your business into? What's your transformational goal or an alignment? And does the person, so the startup owner, both personally align with that transformational vision and as their business? I think, and from experience, that if those things can work together, you have a much better chance than not of succeeding in whatever the relationship you're trying to build. Where I've seen it fail miserably time and time again is where someone comes and promises like, hey, if you saw this over the last couple of years, especially being Canadian with legal weed, is like, hey, you know what's going to make everyone billionaires? Weed. Nope. Hey, you know what's going to make everyone billionaires? Crypto. Nope. NFTs. Nope. It's going to happen with AI, right? I already use a bunch of AI tools. They work great, but there's already tens of thousands of them. 90% won't exist in a couple of years. And I really think that's where that owner of the established organization needs to say, if we implement this in our business, am I going to have to pay this guy a lot more than I think so it sticks around? And that's only, if that aligns again, then go for it. If not, probably better to leave it alone.
I appreciate that, Dylan. I'd be remiss in asking you some clean tech questions since you're on the podcast and that's where your a lot of your work ends up being an expertise. So, what should established founders and family enterprise owners be aware of just in clean tech in general?
Oh man, clean tech has had some hard years. They got the industry, was it 2015? No, maybe it's 2018. They got cleaned out. Most of the investment money got cleaned out. My personal, and I'll get a lot of flack for this, but I'm okay with it. My personal belief is clean tech has too many scientists running the companies. It's the same problem. It's funny. It's like very similar to the trades problem. Is if you look at big trades companies, a really successful one, there's not tradesmen running it. It might have been at one point, but it's business people. I see that in clean tech constantly. Scientists, engineers, a lot of them shut down the idea of having a business partner who knows how to build a business as a skill set that's maybe soft. But it's a much different skill set. Totally biased. My business is building businesses, so obviously I got a bias. But I've seen it time and time again. I'll sit down as just as an EIR with a clean tech company who's run by a chemical specialist or chemical engineer or something, a chemist. And I'm like, you just need to get out and sell this to 5 people. If you can sell this to 5 people, you'll be able to attract enough investment to grow to the next stage. And they're like, no, product's not ready. Branding's not ready. Like, no, you just need to sell whatever it is to 5 people. And then the next time I hear about them, it's out there, the business is done. That's just over and over and over again. Foresight and other accelerators, Breakthrough Energy, that's the VC fund that was originally founded by Bill Gates. I don't know if how much he's involved anymore. Are trying to resolve that, but it's tough, right? Like clean tech is not a sexy place to invest because everything takes 10, 15 years to go to market. And it's all mostly infrastructural, right? So if you're going to build a brand new nuclear plant, it's not going to return investment to an investor for 25 years. It's our capital investment cycles of 3 years now. It's ridiculous. Which I think, and I hope is actually changing because the last 10 years of like what SoftBank has done, lost $50 billion investing in crappy tech companies at unicorn rates. I kind of see it being over for a little while. And so I hope some of that capital goes into clean tech. I'm totally ranting right now. I'm very passionate about clean tech and I'm very annoyed by it commonly.
Well, I had you on and I had to ask you about it and,
Yeah, fair. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you're an expert in it, so don't apologize for what you said. I'm asking for your take. But listen, Dylan, it's been great having you on the podcast. I want to give you some time to let our listeners and viewers know how they can get a hold of you and then just talk about some of the projects that you're working on.
Sure. Yeah. The best way to get a hold of me is I post a lot on LinkedIn. I've been using that platform pretty regularly for 7 months or something like that. So you can get me on there. I think you guys will include that in my link in something like that. So you can check it out in the show notes. You may email me at dylan@profitlaunchpad.com, DYLAN, and check out our website, profitlaunchpad.com. If you guys are familiar with a marketing agency, we are an operational agency. So we act as a specialist team of business professionals, integrators, and operators who come and build your business for you. We work with all sorts of technical entrepreneurs who are experts in the field, and we don't want to replace what they do best. But we firmly believe that what we do and how we build a business is we'll skip them ahead a decade. And that's what we focus on, is getting businesses, skipping the chasm and getting them to market faster. Projects we're working on. I'm mostly only working on Profit Launchpad right now. I'm also the managing partner of a small acquisition company. We buy super boring businesses like RV parks, campsites, HVAC companies, real brick and mortar traditional stuff, like super unexciting. It's really fun. And we're doing that just as a differentiation from being internet entrepreneurs, trying to get a little bit of our, like, not figuratively and literally getting our hands in the dirt.
Dylan, again, thanks so much for being on. I've really appreciated having you. And again, for our listeners and viewers, we want to help you grow your business. It's on that terrible no growth plateau right now that you're going to be on throughout the life cycle of your business every once in a while. Having Dylan on here will help. And to get great guests on here like Dylan, please like and subscribe, follow the podcast, leave us a 5-star review, and share the podcast. In addition, leave us comments and feedback, and feel free to contact the show. Dylan, thanks again for being on.
Thanks, Shabby. Ryan. It was a lot of fun.
This is the Fractional Executive Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Kauth, and you can get a hold of me at ryankauth.coach. The Fractional Executive Podcast is produced by Influencer.tv, the great team of Mark Livingston, Brian Allen, Anna Marino, and Chris Dries.